What's up, everybody? Getting into the Christmas spirit here. Getting into the holiday spirits. Actually, this is for Hanukkah. Not actually Christmas, but holiday spirit. But, I've been doing videos about the Zionist terrorist movement. But what about Zionist terrorist sympathizers? I haven't really talked about any of those yet. For example, you would expect the Israeli Minister of National Security to have no ties at all with terrorism, right? I mean, you wouldn't expect him to be a terrorist sympathizer. You know, you got Arab Jews and Ethiopian Jews and Jews of different European descent all living in Israel. So you wouldn't expect him to be a racist. I'm sorry to keep letting you down. I know we keep being sold this story about how pure the Israeli government is. I know. I'm sorry. You know, like I said, the only way we can ever bring peace to the Middle East is to just face the realities. Like I said, there's plenty of people out there that, you know, they cover everything that, you know, the Islamic radicals are doing. I'm not giving Islamic radicals a pass. That's not what this has ever been about. It's about exposing the truth so that we can come to peace. There needs to be peace. Rabin died trying to bring peace. So BEN-GVIR. A lot of Israelis, you know, they have a nickname for him. They call him the Jewish fascist. That's what the Israelis call him. He's actually been arrested and charged with hate speech. I think it was actually, you know, he was trying to incite riots. You know, I have to look more into that, but he was arrested for hate speech. He was also charged with they use a different term for it, but basically aiding and abetting terrorists. You know, supporting terrorism, I think, is the charge that they actually charged him with. So, you know, really nice guy, exactly the kind of guy you want protecting a Jewish population that has had to endure racism and terrorism and all kinds of atrocities. You know, just exactly the kind of person you want in charge of your, as Minister of National Security. I mean, you know, Ben Shapiro would be a much better choice. I mean, at least he's not openly supporting terrorists. Oh, a lot of you are probably wondering, yeah, who's the terrorist that he, you know, who's this terrorist group that he's supporting? It's actually not one of the terrorist groups that I've talked about, because if I gotta look more into them. I've actually only glanced at a couple things about this group. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing their name right, but it's Kosh, K-A-C-H. It's more from, like I said, I gotta look more into it. It's not one of the ones that I've been investigating, because if I remember right, it's more of a American Zionist terrorist organization. It's, you know, so you get American Israelis with the dual citizenship that tend to be part of this terrorist organization, but they not really known to cause a lot of trouble. They're definitely terrorists, though. They're recognized by the United States government as terrorists. They're recognized by the EU as terrorists. Ironically, Israel, no, they're not terrorists. Then again, like I said, you got to realize that, the government is made up of the remnants of terrorist organizations. I mean, members of Lahai murdered the greatest hero in the last 150 years of the Jewish people, Bernadette. Just murdered him like a dog in the streets because, negotiating with him was too difficult. So, BEN-GVIR, he's not that bad. But, one of his heroes, he actually had this big portrait that used to hang in his living room. And it was the prominent piece in his living room. When you walked in his living room, they say, when you walked in his living room, it was right there. It was the most prominent piece in his living room. And it was his life hero. This is somebody he really looked up to. I mean, this is somebody who's really important to BEN-GVIR. Yeah, the portrait was of Baruch Goldstein. Some of you might recognize that name. Some of you try to think, I know that name. Where do I know that name from? Where do I know that name from? Some of you probably never heard of it. Baruch basically walked. What was the name of it? I didn't write it down. But he walked into a hall. I guess it was a mosque. He just murdered 29 people, some of them children. Jews never kill children. I mean, Zionists never kill children. But, so obviously that's all a lie. He didn't actually kill any children. The people just saw the opportunity and said, hey, he came in and killed a bunch of people. Let's just kill a couple kids, That's what really happened. I mean, if you're using the Zionist thinking, that's the road you have to go down. Because, Zionists are just so pure. I mean, they're just such good people. But, aside from murdering 29 people, they also injured 125 more. The survivors beat the man to death. Literally just beat him to death. As far as I'm concerned, that's justice. But yeah, they just beat him to death. And BEN-GVIR pretty much, idolizes the man, looks at the man as a Zionist martyr. I don't think he's actually used them words, but when somebody has a portrait of someone like that in their living room, and it's the most prominent piece in the living room, probably, the way people describe this picture, probably the most prominent piece in his whole house. I mean, it's like having an altar to this guy. So obviously he worshipped this guy. I mean, you would think, he claims to be Jewish. You'd think he'd be worshipping God. But instead, he's worshipping a terrorist. So, the idea that he looks at him as a martyr, it's not a stretch. He probably, that's my opinion, that he must look at him as a martyr. I don't know that for sure, but like I said, I mean, this guy, he just, and he's openly racist. If you are Arab, he doesn't hold nothing back from you. Like I said, they call him the Jewish fascist. I mean, and you got to realize this guy, all that he'll openly just, I mean, even recently, when it comes to talking about what's going on, on October 7th, he didn't talk about the terrorists. He said, Arabs are not like us. Arabs, I can't remember his exact words. Basically, he said Arabs are subhuman. Arabs can't think properly. He said Arabs. He didn't say terrorists. He said Arabs. I mean, can you imagine being an Arab Jew having to work with this man? How uncomfortable would you be? I'd be scared to death to go to work. If I was an Arab Jew, I'd probably hand in my resignation. I'd be scared to death to go to work with that man. Like I said, I mean, they don't call him the Jewish fascist for nothing.